What's going on, guys? I hope you all have had a pretty good day. I've had a pretty good day, not gonna lie. Um, but okay, I'm gonna get on with this. So, been looking at Bitcoin for the past couple hours, and I did kind of realign my overall uh bear flag thesis a little bit because we did end up getting a slightly higher low from the previous local low standpoint. So, I mean, it wasn't necessarily wrong by no means, but there was this kind of like trend line right here. It kind of like went through it at the end of the day, and then it kind of came back down, and then it created, well, even before then, even before that instance, it actually did print a lower, I'm sorry, a higher low instance. So it kind of got me a little confident for a little while in regards to like the bulls. But I mean, as you can see on the hourly, we just printed a divergence. Yeah, money flow is looking, weaker. I'll give the bulls that. Money flow is looking weaker for the bears. I mean, because as you can see, we kind of have that sloping instance, which to me kind of insinuates continuation to the downside a little bit more. Nothing wrong with that. But yeah, I do feel that it was a little odd to not see these zones tested. Frankly, like I said before in the previous video, that this was kind of a weird spot to really bounce from, or not necessarily bounce from, but to consider a reversal. It just doesn't make much sense in my opinion. There's no true, I mean, you could argue maybe like right here, but there's just not enough data. The more frequent price action is like down here. So yeah, I'm still holding to my guts that we're going to see an eventual break to the downside. We are still in this bear flag opportunity here, and it looks like the bottom is testing out. Now I know I didn't really do the daily. The daily is pretty much the same. There's a couple of things here. Um, on the daily that is kind of interesting as well. Um, for example, we do have the EMAs turning slightly blue, which is pretty cool. It doesn't mean that it's a complete all-out reversal because that does happen from time to time where like yeah the EMAs will go blue, but then it'll just completely just reverse. So um, well it'll take a couple days, but anyway yeah, so seeing this isn't necessarily like a vote of complete confidence of a actual reversal, but also keep in mind it doesn't um, take away from the fact that there could be still some room for the downside is ultimately what I'm getting at here. And as you can see, the bearish divergence is becoming a little bit more mature on the daily here. We still got the yellow, kind of a potential bounce, but maybe. Let me go to the 12-hour. No, no, the 12-hour is actually showing me pretty definitive that this was kind of just like a little bit of a reach here. Because as you can see on the TSI, the 12 hours is obviously a precursor to the daily. So this is actually turned red, and it went from green to now gray. So yeah, from a multi, you know, hour perspective, it just doesn't look too hot. But anyway, I'm gonna go back to the daily here since I just wanted to show you really quick on the 1 hour that yeah, I mean, I called the bear flag, and I mean, it's not completely invalidated, so I'll get more into it later. But anywho, all right, so we're still below that key, 24.2 zone of resistance, so can't necessarily, pop the champagne just yet in regards to bulls. Honestly, though, I mean, I'm not opposed to price pumping and breaking above, 24.2 and then testing it as support to then test the higher, 27.6 range. I do eventually believe that if price does eventually break down to the downside, it's eventually going to come back up and retest roughly around 28.7 to actually, you know, basically solidify it as resistance for a little while, and then we're just going to like, zigzag between the bottom range. Don't necessarily think the bottom is in yet. A couple of hedge fund managers have stated that they think the bottom is in. interesting, but from my perspective, I don't necessarily see that just yet. These rising channels here, I mean, I could just, quickly, make, channel instance right here. Um, we do have a channel. These usually break bearish. Now, it doesn't mean that it's 100% that it's going to be bearish. Like there is a probability that these do break to the upside, but you gotta play probabilities, and the probabilities are that these eventually do break to the downside. So you gotta have that mentality. There's nothing wrong with a retrace of, say, another 3 to 4 or 5% and then a bounce to the upside, but it could break down another 4.5% or whatever, then actually go continue. It could actually continue and then back test this as resistance and then just continue downward. So we are in a pattern. Usually patterns are good for if patterns are good for scalps and swings. Okay, since we're on the daily chart, this is a pretty good swing. This has been a very good swing trading opportunity. Like this pattern has been giving you obvious pivot points within here. So it's been like a weekly swing, all that kind of stuff. Now, as we're getting more along this particular pattern, you can't necessarily expect it to hold through within this range here, especially on a macro daily. But yeah, anyway, I'm going to go to the MACD here. As you can see on the MACD, we are having a sell signal, okay? And the momentum is going to the downside. Oh, sorry, on the 1 hour. Sorry, that is not the daily. The daily is still showing that, I mean, it's nothing new to report here, frankly. It still has that waning momentum. So, yep, that doesn't look too hot. What's interesting about the TSI is the TSI is still showing as long as price is above 23.15, we can expect prices to stay to the upside. So what does that look like? Okay, so on the daily perspective, and you really want that daily perspective, frankly, on a macro perspective. Whoops, what did I just do? I gotta redo that. Okay, so I'm gonna redo that entirely. I totally botched that. Where is that line? Hello. Okay, so let me type that in. Okay, okay. Roughly, and it's so freaking close, it's crazy. I'm gonna change that to a yellow because it's danger zone warning. Alright, so let me go to like a 4 hour and kind of show you how close it is. We're very close here, and given how the bear flag is, I mean, to me, this is very difficult. We do have this bullish engulfing candle, right? Um, but if you're trading on the hourly, I mean, from my perspective, not financial advice, but like I would definitely see the base um, of this bullish engulfing candle, and if I see an hourly candle close below this, I would definitely open up a fresh short, in my opinion. Um, yeah, given that the EMAs are still kind of acting as a little bit as support, you're playing with fire a little bit. But honestly, given that I know on the daily chart that this is a key point for the Bears and Bulls to duke it out, which is at 23.15K, yeah, I do suspect over time it to kind of wane over. But that's just my opinion. I gotta see it to believe it. And as you can see here on the daily, we had a sell signal yesterday, and now the fast moving average is crossing below the slow moving average, which is not good for, like, this is last time it happened. Check this out. This is what happened, right? And we had this mega move to the downside. Okay, so these moves you should not take lightly at all. So you have to take in consideration. Now, the fast moving averages, we are kind of having some indecision. So broke down below the slow moving average, but now it's trying to bounce off of it. So we are in the neutral zone at this time. Um, Things to take in consideration on the daily RSI is this line of resistance. Still, I talked about this maybe like not last video, but the video before maybe, that at some point I would not be surprised if the RSI actually pumped to the upside here and then just, got rejected. Now, if it actually broke through it, that would indicate a lot of positive things, but it just got to see to believe it. But it is the daily. This could take like a week to actually play out, so it's not something you want to hang your hat on in terms of just overall decision making, especially if you're doing more so intraday trading or even scalping. But yeah, and going back to it, the daily did have a bearish divergence, but it hasn't really tagged the top side just yet. So even though I do suspect a little bit more downside from a macro perspective, I do ultimately think that eventually the price of Bitcoin will eventually reach its top. Now, I don't think it's this week in my opinion. But also I do feel that consolidation is still a factor given that there are sell signals on these major moves here. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in on the 4 hour here. Alright, so I'm going to start it off with the market cipher B indicator. So as you can see, money flow is kind of looking weak. I mean, it looks more definitive on the Heikin-Ashi candles. I like the Heikin-Ashi candle money flow indicator better because it's just more fluid and easier to read. It's super choppy on the Japanese candles and very jagged and stuff like that. So it's very hard to get like some consensus, but it's really smoothed out when you use the Heikin-Ashi. Anyway, so the VWAP is still pointing down, money flow is still red, and yeah, usually when the daily crosses, we get a sell signal. So it doesn't seem that we're getting that just yet, but at the same time, if you look at the 4 hour instance right here, we do have wicks to the top side and to the bottom, which is not a good thing in terms of overall momentum. Now the EMAs are still positive, so there's still an opportunity for a bounce, but given the shape and overall resistance of the top line, it right here, and it's more definitive on the 1 hour. This I do have to respect as resistance, as particularly this top side line right here. Okay, uh, going to the TSI. The TSI did cross below the zero line here, and now we're kind of having like a potential instance where we might actually see curvature down. As you can see, this is looking damn near horizontal, the fast moving TSI. So, you have to keep that in consideration. But also, the slow moving average is blue, all right, and we are in a fake out range. So a lot could happen here. A lot could potentially go down. I'm leaning more towards bearish due to us, you know, um, potentially printing out a higher low in this case. It's just really risky to, in my opinion, open up fresh longs. If you're gonna open up a fresh long here, I mean, like 22.7 would be a better range. But then again, once price is at that zone, what are the indicators telling you? And that's where I would immediately change my mind depending on what the momentum indicators are saying. So it's just not really, even on the 4 hour, not a good sign to begin thinking about longing. All right, so I'm gonna speed it up here and go back to the 1 hour where the real definitive price action's coming from. All right, so on the MACD, we are getting a sell signal. The histogram has crossed below the zero line. Just means it's easier for the bears to now push the price down. Okay, that's just definitive. Also, the TSI here states as long as price is below 23.425. Okay, what does that look like here? I'm gonna turn this one into like a purple, right? Okay, so 2, 3, 4, 5, basically. 2, 3, 4, 2, 5, actually, 2, 5. Okay, so that is actually right here. So as long as price is below 23.425, you can expect prices to continue to the downside. Now there hasn't been a confirmed cross on the TSI, but let me show you on the 37-minute time frame. So the 37-minute time frame actually confirmed a lower high and across the downside. So from my perspective, we're kind of looking at potentially the beginning of a move to the downside. And as you can see currently on the 1 hour, price is trying to fight to stay above the 9 EMA, and it's currently failing. So if you continue seeing back tests of the 9 EMA as resistance, then it's pretty much confirmed that we are in fact going to move more to the downside. All right, as you can see on the RSI here, I'm kind of like going through my favorites, but I am kind of just like really zoned in on this particular instances. But anyway, as you can see, the MACD-X is actually already had a sell signal a couple hours ago, and is actually creating lower highs from the slow moving average perspective, as you can see. So it's just easier for me to actually feel more bearish. Also, the RSI has printed below the slow moving average, and we did have a little moment of bullish activity, and I said this probably last week. Um, because we were in a bear market, essentially, time in this particular space, even from like the 1 hour perspective, the 4 hour perspective, the daily perspective, the RSI is rarely, or not rarely, that's a strong statement, but usually it doesn't hang out around the overbought zone much. So it's common to see it, okay, it pumped up, okay, then it just immediately left. It was only there for a few hours. I mean, what it was literally like 3.5 hours, and then it just went back down. So we are in a bear market, so it just makes sense. Okay, we tagged the top side, now it's more likely we're gonna visit the downside more often. Okay, so also we did tap on the overbought zone on the TMA, and we are crossing at this time, or potentially crossing the slow moving average on the TMA. So it's just further indicating further continuation of the downside. Now, doesn't mean it's going to completely, just break down and quote unquote shit the bed, but the TSI especially is looking really bearish, not going to lie. There is some hope for the bulls because we do have this higher low instance. So is this a time where we're going to come back down and print a higher low? That is on the table still. So even though at this time it doesn't look too hot, there is still hope that we can see a potential swing long opportunity sooner rather than later. Now let me go back to the 1 hour here, because I was mostly just showing you the 37-minute time frame. Yeah, on the 1 hour it looks a little bit more recent, but yeah, I mean, it's still a good time in my opinion, not financial advice, to kind of consider your shorting opportunities. Now, like I said in the past couple minutes here, uh, I want to see an hourly close outside of the support line right here, and then I want to see a back test, and preferably I would like to see a candle close below this bullish engulfing candle. Bullish engulfing candles are very difficult to actually reverse. In order to take away confidence from the bulls, you have to take out that bullish engulfing candle. Um, so yeah, but in all honesty, from my perspective, as long as I see an hourly candle close outside of this uh, upward sloping line, I'm most likely going to open up a short, frankly. That's what I'm going to do. Not telling you you have to do it, but I'm just saying that's what I'm doing. Okay, right. So also on the TSI here, a fresh cross from, blue to red here. So that's an interesting case. Now, the 25 mark is usually where the initial dump kind of comes into, but there's still room, as you can see, to the top side. So you can't just like, go all in on this short. I would more so kind of see it as like a potential opportunity to get a higher low. But right now, just gotta see, because the EMAs there is still potential for the EMAs to act as support. What would really kill it, this particular support, would actually be hourly candle closes under the 100 EMA, which is basically this line right here. I know there's like 3 lines, but it's the one in the middle, like right here. Basically an hourly candle close under the 100 EMA, that would pretty much call it for me, and I feel more comfortable being full on bear. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna keep it short today, but I just want to say thank you so much for checking out this video. Please like, comment and subscribe in regards to um, yeah, all this stuff that's going on. What do you guys think? I know we're kind of like in limbo. Do you think we're going to pump to the upside? Do you think we're going to, break down to the downside? Um, yeah, I'd appreciate some, feedback in regards to what y'all think. Personally, as you already know, um, I am a little bit more bearish. We have printed a higher, um, like a higher high recently and a higher low, so that's nice. Um, but given that this topside resistance here and this upward slope, it just looks like a bear flag, doesn't it? It just looks like a bear flag. So if I were to measure this, um, just final thoughts here. If I were to measure this move, um, price, let's say it breaks down like right here, okay? It would match up so nicely with 21.6 and 21.5. Also, also aligns with my supply line right here. So, I mean, you know, from my perspective, this would just make so much sense in regards to where price is going. Now, it's not definitive. There are fake outs, and just because there's a bear flag here doesn't mean that it's 100% probability that it's going to happen. Pattern trading is very probabilistic, so it's not like a definitive yes or no. So you always have to play with your indicators, see where there's correlations and parallels with other things and all that jazz. But from my perspective, yeah, I do feel that this is a bear flag and we could break to the downside. But anyway, yeah, take care. Have a good rest of the day. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye bye.